Welcome back to Zito. I'm Yang Song from the Global Times. About 1 year ago, Chinese people, just like everyone else around the globe, were shocked by a massive military conflict that has profoundly changed the geopolitical landscape in both Europe and internationally. Unfortunately, this horrible tragedy between Russia and Ukraine is still far from over. Tens of thousands of military personnel and civilians have been killed on both sides during the past 12 months. The food and energy crisis caused by the conflict and the US-led anti-Russia sanctions are continually undermining the fragile global economic recovery and international security. China has taken a neutral stance and is not a party directly involved. While it didn't choose to be a bystander or add fuel to the fire, nor exploit the crisis, China always insists on promoting peace talks. Today, I'm going to share with you an online survey conducted by the Global Times among the Chinese netizens about their view on the Russia-Ukraine conflict at its one-year anniversary. The survey was conducted from February 17 to 21, covering 5,241 Chinese netizens that were mainly located across the Chinese mainland. More than 90% of the participants were aged 18 to 45, with 83% holding a bachelor's degree or above. Regarding their view on Russia-Ukraine conflict, more than 93% of the participants picked the following option: stay fair and neutral, to provide humanitarian assistance to the people in need, maintain normal trade and cooperation with all relevant parties, to actively develop and preserve the diplomatic ties with Russia and Ukraine, oppose US moves which add fuel to the flames, and oppose NATO's expansion, respect the legitimate and reasonable concerns of all parties, and focus on conflict mediation. You must notice that most Chinese people are clearly opposed to US moves in this case, despite holding a neutral stance in general. And this is a very interesting point. More than 68% of the respondents said the US should be held accountable for the outbreak of the conflict and the subsequent damage to the global industrial and supply chains. Why do they hold this opinion? I have talked to many of them and found that what Chinese people have learned from the conflict is very different from the Western people. Firstly, they believe that it was the United States who provoked the conflict, because Russia has warned the West about NATO expansion again and again. But the United States just ignored the warning and encouraged Kiev to challenge Moscow's bottom line on purpose, leaving Russia with no choice but to opt for military measures to counter Western threats. They sympathize Ukrainian people, but they consider that Kiev has been used by Washington to fight Moscow as long as possible. And this is why Russia and Ukraine have failed to implement their agreements reached during the peace talks in 2022. And the Biden administration is benefiting from the conflict in the fields like maintaining internal bipartisan unity, funding the military-industrial complex to earn huge amount of money through expensive arms supplies to Ukraine, and worsening the business environment of Europe to force local companies to move their operations to the United States. Experts said China is also facing similar pressures from the United States in Asia, as Washington is trying to copy the bloc-to-bloc confrontation in the region by forming and strengthening its alliances to contain China, and ignoring China's warning on challenging China's core interests, like the Taiwan question, again and again. They have seen too many cases of the United States who is trying to instigate China's relations with regional countries and create the conditions to further worsen regional security. So it's very natural for them to understand Russia's situation to some extent. I suggested our viewers from Western countries to pay attention to this kind of public opinion in China. When you ask China to stand with the West to pressure Russia, you need to ask yourselves, have you stood with China when China's sovereignty and territorial integrity is provoked and undermined by other countries? Have you ever helped or at least spoken for China when Chinese companies have been unfairly sanctioned by the United States solely because Washington is anxious about China's reasonable development? And more importantly, is pressuring Russia really a way to end the conflict? When asked about what is the biggest obstacle for the peace process, more than 72% of the respondents said the United States' involvement means Kiev is unable to make the decision independently. And the explosion of the Nord Stream pipelines has led to the ties between Russia and EU major countries being cut off. And the United States and NATO are willing to maintain the conflict. Indeed, echoing what Chinese senior diplomat Wang Yi said at the Munich Security Conference recently, despite multiple rounds of negotiation between Russia and Ukraine last year, the peace talks ended without any result. We are not aware of the reasons behind it, Wang said, adding that it seems some forces might not wish to see a successful peace talk or an end to the conflict. Those forces do not care about the lives of the Ukrainian people, nor the damage taken by Europe, Wang said, adding that instead they have a larger strategic goal. Wang didn't name who these forces are, but I think many of you have already got the answer. The facts have proved that the negotiation between Moscow and Kiev is unable to solve the problems which cause conflict. And this is why they have no choice but to seek solution on the battlefields. The key to ending the conflict is in the hands of Washington. After 12 months of conflict, most Chinese people surveyed hold a pessimistic view of what happens next. The survey showed that more than 76% of the respondents believe that the conflict will be prolonged. And maybe some negotiation will occur, but the conflict will not be entirely stopped in the short term. We hope the conflict will end as soon as possible, and we stand on the side of peace. But we also see how complicated and difficult for the warring parties to realize meaningful negotiation at this stage. What will happen next? Some experts have claimed before any of the warring parties to realize a decisive military victory, there's no clear hope for negotiation. So it will be a tragedy that more casualties and damage will occur before the dawn of peace. Some analysis also claim that the Russia-Ukraine conflict will be a central topic during the 2024 US presidential election, and that the President Joe Biden and his administration will work to ensure that the conflict drags on. So this means the conflict might last for at least one more year. Do you believe this prediction, or do you have your own understanding of the conflict? I hope this Z-Talk can at least help you better understand what and why Chinese people are thinking about the ongoing complicated situation at the one-year anniversary of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Feel free to share your opinions with us. Thank you for watching and see you next time.